I should have known something was wrong when I found my favorite perfume bottle uncapped. I'm meticulous about these things. The Chanel my grandmother left me stays perfectly sealed, always. But there it was, the crystal stopper lying beside it like a forgotten promise. "Hello?" I called out, dropping my bags in the foyer. The house answered back with unusual silence. Tobias's car was in the driveway, but the stillness felt wrong, like holding your breath underwater a second too long. I'd cut my business trip short, eager to surprise my husband on our anniversary. 15 years together, 7 married. The weight of the small blue box from his favorite watchmaker pressed against my hip in my coat pocket. I'd spent 3 months saving for it. The hardwood was cool beneath my stockinged feet as I climbed the stairs, running my fingers along the banister. Our wedding photos lined the wall, Tobias dipping me on the dance floor, both of us laughing. Me feeding him cake, his eyes crinkling at the corners the way that still made my stomach flip. A soft thump from our bedroom stopped me mid-step. "Toby?" I pushed open the door, the familiar creak suddenly sinister. Time fractured. My brain captured disconnected images like a camera with a broken shutter. Tangled sheets, bare skin, my husband's startled face, and beside him, Michaela, Daria's voice, my best friend since college, the woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral. The woman now scrambling to cover herself with my Egyptian cotton sheets. My anniversary gift thudded against the floor. The sound seemed to come from miles away. "It's not what it looks like," Daria said, her eyes wide with something between fear and defiance. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, bitter as burnt coffee. "Really? Because it looks exactly like my husband fucking my best friend in my bed." Tobias was frozen, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. "Mick, please." "How long?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm. Inside, something was shattering, but outside I was still, the eye of my own hurricane. They exchanged glances. That tiny look between them, the silent communication of intimacy, cut deeper than finding them naked. 3 months, Tobias finally said. 3 months. While I was planning our anniversary trip, while Daria was helping me pick out his gift over brunch, nodding enthusiastically. "He'll love it, Meek." "Get out," I whispered. "Let me explain." Daria reached for her scattered clothes, her bracelet, the one I'd given her for her birthday, catching the afternoon light. "Get out!" The scream tore from my throat, primal and raw. They dressed in frantic, shameful movements. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them like they were strangers. In a way, they were. The Tobias I knew wouldn't do this. The Daria I'd trusted with every secret since we were 19 wouldn't betray me. Yet here we were. As Daria brushed past me, she pressed something into my hand. An envelope. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Her perfume, the same one she'd borrowed from my vanity countless times, making me want to retch. "But you need to know everything." Tobias couldn't meet my eyes. "I'll stay at Mark's tonight. We should talk tomorrow when..." "When what? When I've calmed down? When I've had time to process finding my husband in bed with my best friend? There's no tomorrow for us, Tobias." He flinched at the ice in my voice. Good. I wanted it to cut him. After they left, the house echoed with absence. I sank onto the edge of the bed, their bed now, tainted, and stared at the envelope in my trembling hands. Heavy cream stationery, my name written in elegant script I recognized immediately. My mother's handwriting. What could Gianna possibly have to do with this? We barely spoke these days. Her disapproval of my career choices and marriage creating a chasm neither of us tried to bridge. I tore it open, unfolding the letter inside. My dearest Michaela, by the time you read this, you will have discovered the unfortunate truth about Tobias and Daria. While I take no pleasure in your pain, I must confess my role in bringing this situation to light. My stomach lurched as I read further. I've always known Tobias wasn't worthy of you. Rather than trying to convince you, we both know how stubborn you can be, I decided to prove it. Daria was reluctant at first, but eventually saw reason. If he could be seduced by your closest friend, he was never the man you believed him to be. This intervention may seem cruel, but I assure you it comes from love. You deserve better than a man who would betray you at the first temptation. Call me when you're ready to come home. Mother. The letter slipped from my fingers. The room spun around me as understanding crashed down like a collapsing building. This wasn't just an affair. It was a setup, a test, a manipulation, and everyone I loved had played their part perfectly. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen, my reflection distorted in the glass. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who had walked through the front door an hour ago. That woman was dead, and whoever I was now had only one purpose, making them all pay for killing her. My mother's letter burned in my hands like a live coal. I read it 3 more times, each word cutting deeper than the last. The elegant script I'd once tried so hard to imitate as a child now looked like what it was, poison disguised as calligraphy. I paced our bedroom, my bedroom now, unable to sit still. The sheets where I'd found them lay in a heap on the floor where I'd torn them off the mattress. Even the air felt contaminated. My phone buzzed. Daria. I declined the call, then watched as a text appeared. Please let me explain. It's more complicated than you think. More complicated? My mother had orchestrated my husband's infidelity with my best friend as some twisted loyalty test. What could possibly be more complicated than that? I hurled my phone against the wall, satisfaction flaring as the screen shattered. The brief release of tension evaporated instantly, leaving me hollow again. Without thinking, I found myself in the bathroom, turning the shower as hot as it would go. I stepped in fully clothed, gasping as the scalding water hit me. My blouse clung to my skin, mascara running down my face in black rivulets. I stayed there until my skin turned angry red and my clothes were soaked through, then sank to the tile floor. How had I not seen this coming? The signs were there. Daria asking unusually specific questions about my travel schedule. Tobias's sudden interest in his appearance. My mother's unexpected phone calls, fishing for details about my marriage. I'd been so blind. The water ran cold before I finally dragged myself out, peeling off the sodden clothes and wrapping myself in a robe. My wedding ring caught on the fabric. I twisted it off and placed it on the counter, the diamond catching the light. 7 years of promises, tarnished beyond recognition. The doorbell rang, startling me from my trance. I ignored it, but whoever it was persisted, the chimes growing more insistent. Finally, I trudged downstairs, not bothering to check my appearance. Andy stood on my porch, concern etched across his familiar face. My oldest friend, the only one who'd warned me about Tobias years ago. Jesus, Mick, he said, taking in my wet hair and hollow eyes. What happened? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. You were right about him. Happy? His expression softened. Never. Can I come in? I stepped aside wordlessly. Andy followed me to the kitchen where I pulled a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet. I poured 2 glasses, sliding one across the counter to him. Tobias called me, he admitted, watching me carefully. He's worried about you. How thoughtful of him to worry after fucking my best friend. I drained my glass in one burning swallow. Did he mention that part? Andy winced. He did. And that your mother somehow... I slammed the glass down. Read it yourself. I thrust the letter at him, watching his face as he absorbed my mother's calculated words. Christ, Michaela, he whispered when he finished. This is sociopathic, evil, completely on brand for Gianna. I poured another drink. Pick your adjective. Andy set the letter down like it might bite him. What are you going to do? The question hung between us. What was I going to do? Curl up and cry? Run home to mother like she wanted? Forgive them all and pretend it never happened? I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I'm not letting them get away with this. Mick, don't, I cut him off. Don't tell me to take the high road. They didn't just hurt me, Andy. They plotted against me. They collaborated. My mother recruited my best friend to seduce my husband to prove a point. I wasn't going to suggest forgiveness, he said quietly, but revenge won't undo what happened. I stared at him. No, but it might help me sleep at night. After Andy left, extracting a promise that I wouldn't do anything rash tonight, I sat in the dark living room, my mind racing. The whiskey had dulled the edges of my pain, but sharpened my rage. I needed information, ammunition, before I could decide my next move. I found my laptop and began searching. First Daria's social media, looking for clues I'd missed. Nothing obvious. She was too careful for that. Then Tobias's email. We knew each other's passwords, a transparency we'd agreed on early in our marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. His inbox revealed nothing at first glance. But in his archived messages, I found a folder labeled simply D. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, suddenly unsure if I wanted to know more. Did I really need to see their intimate exchanges? The planning? The lies? Yes. I needed to know everything. The first email was dated 4 months ago, longer than the 3 months Tobias had admitted to. The subject line read, "Consider this carefully." It was from my mother. Tobias, I've given considerable thought to our last conversation regarding Michaela's inheritance. My offer stands. Prove yourself worthy of my daughter or step aside. Daria understands what needs to be done and is prepared to help assess your commitment. This test may seem extreme, but family legacy requires certainty. Should you pass, the trust fund will transfer as discussed. Should you fail, I trust you'll make the honorable choice. Jana, my inheritance? The trust fund my grandfather had left me, which I could only access after my 35th birthday. Next month, or with my mother's approval? This wasn't just a loyalty test. It was extortion. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking with a new, colder fury. This wasn't just about hurting me anymore. It was about money. My money. And now I knew exactly what I was going to do. I barely slept. By morning, my eyes felt like they'd been rubbed with sandpaper, but my mind was razor sharp. I showered, dressed in my most severe black suit, and applied makeup like armor. The woman in the mirror looked dangerous. Good. I needed to be dangerous today. First stop, Rachel Fisher. Rachel and I had never been close, despite working at the same law firm for 3 years. She'd been Daria's friend first, until their mysterious falling out last year. Daria had never explained what happened, just said Rachel was unstable and not to be trusted. Now I wondered what the real story was. I found her at her desk, reviewing case files. Her eyebrows shot up when I appeared in her doorway. Michaela, this is unexpected. I need to talk to you about Daria. Rachel's expression hardened instantly. She glanced around the office, then nodded toward the conference room. Not here. Once the door closed behind us, Rachel crossed her arms. What did she do to you? How do you know she did something to me? Because that's what Daria does. She destroys people. Rachel's voice was flat, matter of fact. So what was it? I took a deep breath. She slept with my husband, on my mother's instructions. Rachel didn't look surprised, which surprised me. Let me guess. There was money involved? My stomach dropped. How did you know that? Because she did the same thing to me. Not with a husband, obviously, but... Rachel sank into a chair. Daria seduced my brother while he was engaged, broke up his relationship. Turns out my father had offered her a job at his company if she could prove James wasn't ready for marriage. The room seemed to tilt. This is a pattern for her? Daria's services aren't cheap, but they're effective. Rachel's smile was bitter. She's built quite a reputation as the ultimate loyalty tester. Your mother isn't her first client. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. I need everything you know about her, every client, every scheme. Rachel studied me. What are you planning? Justice. The word tasted like metal on my tongue. She nodded slowly. I've been gathering information for months, planning my own payback. Maybe we should compare notes. 2 hours later, I left with a flash drive containing everything Rachel had collected on Daria's business. Names, dates, bank transfers. It was more extensive than I'd imagined, and more damning. My next stop was harder. I sat in my car outside my childhood home for 20 minutes, rehearsing what I would say. The sprawling Tudor house looked exactly as it always had. Immaculate, imposing, cold. I didn't bother ringing the bell. My key still worked, though I hadn't used it in years. The foyer smelled of lemon polish and the faint trace of my mother's signature perfume. Michaela? My mother appeared at the top of the stairs, surprise quickly masked by her usual composure. I didn't expect you so soon. Clearly, I remained by the door, unwilling to step further into her territory. We need to talk about what you did. She descended the stairs with practiced grace, her silk blouse unwrinkled, her pearls perfectly aligned. At 59, Gianna was still beautiful in a severe, untouchable way. I assume you've read my letter? She gestured toward the sitting room. Shall we discuss this civilly? There's nothing civil about what you did. But I followed her anyway, perversely comforted by the familiar routine of our confrontations. She poured herself tea from a silver service. I did what was necessary. Tobias has always been after your money. My money that you control. That I protect, she corrected. Your grandfather entrusted me with ensuring his legacy wasn't squandered on unworthy investments or unworthy men. So you orchestrated my husband's infidelity? Had my best friend seduce him? My voice cracked despite my efforts to remain cold. Do you have any idea what that did to me? For a moment, something like regret flickered across her face. The method was unfortunate, but the truth was necessary. Would you rather have discovered his true nature after he gained access to your inheritance? What I would rather, I said carefully, is a mother who didn't treat my life like a chess game. She sipped her tea. You've always been dramatic, and you've always been manipulative, but this time you went too far. I leaned forward. I want access to my trust fund. Now, not next month. Today. Gianna laughed softly. That's not how it works, darling. The terms are quite specific. So is blackmail. I placed my phone on the table between us, playing the recording I'd made of our conversation. And conspiracy to commit fraud and emotional distress. I wonder what grandfather's old friends on the bank's board would think of how you've been protecting his legacy. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I stood up. I want the paperwork transferring control of the trust to me by tomorrow, or this recording goes to the family lawyer, the bank trustees, and every gossip columnist in the city. As I turned to leave, she called after me. Michaela, wait. You don't understand what you're doing. I paused at the door. I understand perfectly. I learned from the best after all. The victory felt hollow as I drove away. I'd confronted my mother, but the emptiness inside me hadn't filled. If anything, it had deepened. What was I becoming? Someone who recorded private conversations? Who blackmailed her own mother? Someone like Gianna. My phone rang. Andy. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't handle his concern right now, his inevitable warnings about the path I was on. Instead, I pulled into a park overlooking the city, the same park where Tobias had proposed. I sat on our bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in violent reds and oranges. My phone pinged with a text from Rachel. Found something big. Daria's not working alone. There's someone else pulling strings behind your mother. I stared at the message, my carefully constructed plan suddenly inadequate. This wasn't just about Tobias, Daria, and my mother anymore. The game was bigger than I thought, and I was still learning the rules. Rachel's text left me reeling. Someone else pulling strings? Who could possibly have more influence over my mother than her own inflated sense of entitlement? I called Rachel immediately. What do you mean she's not working alone? I've been tracking Daria's finances, Rachel said, her voice low and urgent. There's a pattern of payments, large ones, from an offshore account. They align perfectly with her assignments, including yours. My mother has offshore accounts, I said, watching the last traces of sunset disappear. That's hardly surprising. These aren't from your mother. The account holder is listed as Meridian Consulting. I did some digging. It's a shell company owned by someone named Marcus Winters. The name hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. You know him? He's my father's former business partner. I gripped the phone tighter. And my mother's ex-lover. After my father died when I was 16, Marcus had practically moved into our house, helping my mother with the business transition. Their affair lasted 3 years before he disappeared with a substantial chunk of my father's company. My mother had been livid, embarrassed, and suspiciously quick to settle out of court. I need to see everything you have on him, I said, already walking back to my car. I'll send what I've got, but Michaela... Rachel hesitated. Be careful. If he's involved, this is bigger than a cruel loyalty test. An hour later, I sat cross-legged on my hotel room floor. I couldn't bear to return to the house I'd shared with Tobias, surrounded by printouts, bank statements, emails, photos. Rachel's investigation was impressively thorough. The pattern was undeniable. For the past 5 years, Marcus had been funding Daria's loyalty tests through his shell company. My mother appeared in several photos with him, despite claiming they hadn't spoken in decades. And most disturbing of all, the targets of these schemes were all connected to my father's old business associates or their families. This wasn't just about my inheritance. This was about something much older. A grudge, a vendetta, a plan years in the making. My phone buzzed with a text from Tobias. "Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain everything." I almost laughed. What could he possibly explain? That he'd been manipulated? That he was sorry? That he'd only slept with my best friend because my mother and her secret partner had orchestrated it? I typed back, "Did you know about Marcus Winters?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, who told you that name? Not a denial. Not surprise. He knew. I hurled the phone across the room, a scream of frustration tearing from my throat. Everyone had been lying to me. Everyone. A knock at my door startled me. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Andy stood in the hallway, hands shoved in his pockets, looking worried. I opened the door a crack. "How did you find me?" "You always stay at the Parkview when you're upset, since college." He offered a tentative smile. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. Andy took in the papers scattered across the floor, my disheveled appearance. "You look like you're plotting a murder," he said, only half joking. "Close enough." I sank onto the edge of the bed. "Did you know about any of this?" Andy sat beside me, leaving careful space between us. "I knew Tobias was acting strange. That's why I warned you something was off. But the rest?" He shook his head. "I had no idea." I wanted to believe him. After everything, I desperately needed one person who hadn't betrayed me. "Marcus Winters is involved," I said, watching his face carefully. "He's been funding Daria's loyalty testing business, including what she did with Tobias." Andy's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Marcus? But he's been gone for years." Apparently not gone enough. I handed him the photos Rachel had compiled. He and my mother have been working together. I just don't understand why. Andy studied the images, his brow furrowed. "This is insane, Mick. These people, they're playing with your life like it's nothing." "Not nothing," I corrected. "Something valuable, something worth scheming for years to control." "What are you going to do?" I stood up, pacing the small room. "I'm going to find out what they're really after, and then I'm going to take it away from them." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I'm done being their pawn." I turned to face him. "Will you help me?" Andy was silent for a long moment. "What you're talking about, going up against your mother, Marcus, Daria, it's dangerous. These aren't good people, Mick." "I know that better than anyone." "And once you start down this road," he looked troubled, "revenge changes people. I don't want it to change you." I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. "I'm already changed. They saw to that when they destroyed my marriage and my friendships in one calculated move." Andy stood, closing the distance between us. He took my hands in his touch warm and familiar. "Then promise me something. Promise you won't lose yourself completely in this." I wanted to make that promise, but I wasn't sure it was mine to make anymore. "I'll try," I said instead. After Andy left, I sat alone in the darkened room, staring at the evidence of betrayal spread around me. My phone lit up with another text from Tobias. "Whatever you think you know about Marcus, you're wrong. It's complicated. Please come home." I picked up my phone and typed 3 words. "I'm coming tomorrow." It wasn't forgiveness. It was strategy. If Tobias knew about Marcus, he might know more. Information I could use. And if I had to pretend I was considering reconciliation to get it, so be it. The woman I'd been 3 days ago would have been horrified by such calculation. But she was gone. And I wasn't sorry to see her go. I stood outside what used to be my home, key in hand, feeling like an intruder. The morning sun cast long shadows across the porch where Tobias and I had spent countless summer evenings, where he'd held me during my father's funeral, where we'd talked about having children someday. All lies. Or were they? That was the worst part, not knowing which memories were real and which were calculated performances. I didn't use my key. I rang the doorbell instead. Tobias answered immediately, like he'd been waiting by the door. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from 2 days ago. Good. Michaela. My name came out like a prayer. Thank you for coming. I brushed past him into the house, keeping my coat on, a barrier between us. I'm not here for reconciliation. I want answers. He nodded, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Anything. Everything. Just sit down, please? I perched on the edge of the sofa, back straight, hands folded in my lap. The perfect posture my mother had drilled into me since childhood. Tobias sat across from me, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Start with Marcus Winters, I said. Tobias flinched at the name. How much do you know? Enough to know he's been funding Daria's little side business. Enough to know my mother's been working with him for years. I kept my voice steady. Not enough to understand why my husband would participate in their scheme. It wasn't like that. Tobias pressed his palms together, almost like he was praying. Marcus approached me 6 months ago. He said he represented your mother's interests, that she was concerned about my intentions, my inheritance. Yes. He looked ashamed. He said if I could prove my commitment to you, your mother would stop blocking your access to the trust fund, that all I had to do was reject Daria's advances. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. And you failed spectacularly. I didn't know it was a test. His voice rose, then immediately softened. Not at first. Daria started showing up when you were away, calling late at night, touching me when we were in groups. I thought she was just being Daria, until you slept with her. He couldn't meet my eyes. She told me you were having an affair, that you and Andy had been seeing each other for months. She had photos, texts. Faked. My stomach turned. And you believed her. I didn't want to. But the evidence... He shook his head. I was hurt, angry. She caught me at my lowest point. So you slept with her out of revenge? I stood up, unable to sit still. That's your excuse? It's not an excuse. It's what happened. He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. I found out it was all a setup the next day. Marcus called to tell me I'd failed the test. That's when I realized what they'd done. What I'd done. Why didn't you tell me immediately? I was going to. But then your mother threatened to destroy my business, my reputation. She said she'd make sure you never believed me. His voice cracked. I was trying to find a way out when you came home early. I paced the living room, processing his story. It aligned with what Rachel had uncovered, but something still felt off. What does Marcus get out of this? I asked. Why would he care about my marriage or my inheritance? Tobias hesitated. I don't know exactly, but he mentioned something about reclaiming what was stolen. I think it has to do with your father's company. My father's company. The one Marcus had tried and failed to take over after Dad died. The one my mother had eventually sold to a competitor, rather than let Marcus near it. There's something else, Tobias said quietly. Something I found after everything happened. He went to his office and returned with a folder. These were in your mother's desk when I went to confront her. I took them. Inside were legal documents, old contracts, amendments, partnership agreements. My father's signature appeared alongside Marcus's on most of them, but one document caught my eye. A handwritten agreement dated 2 weeks before my father's death. In the event of my death or incapacitation, my shares and interests in Morris Enterprises shall transfer in full to my daughter, Michaela Morris, to be held in trust until her 35th birthday. This supersedes all previous arrangements with any partners or shareholders. My hands trembled. My father knew something was going to happen to him. Look at the witness signature, Tobias said softly. The elegant script was unmistakable. Daria Simmons. She was 19, I whispered. Just started college. How was she involved? I don't know, but there's more. Tobias pointed to another document, a trust amendment filed by my mother after my father's death. She changed the terms, made herself trustee with full control, not just until you turned 35, but indefinitely, unless she deemed you of sound judgment and character. The room seemed to spin around me. She stole my inheritance. My father wanted me to have control and she took it. And Marcus wants it too, Tobias added. Whatever it really is. I sank back onto the sofa, mind racing. This wasn't just about money. This was about something in my father's company, something valuable enough that my mother had spent 17 years keeping it from me, something Marcus had been plotting to reclaim, and Daria had been involved from the beginning. Tobias, I said slowly, where is Daria now? I don't know. She disappeared after you found us. He looked genuinely concerned. Her sister called me yesterday, asking if I'd seen her. Daisy called you? That was unexpected. Daisy and Daria weren't close, another casualty of Daria's manipulative nature. She sounded scared, Mick, said Daria had called her, frantic about something going wrong with the plan, that people were after her. A chill ran through me. What people? She didn't say, but Tobias was interrupted by my phone ringing. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. Michaela? A woman's voice, breathless, terrified. It's Daisy. Daria's in trouble. They're going to kill her, and I think you're next. Where are you? I demanded, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The old boathouse at Lake Westwood, Daisy whispered. Please hurry, and don't tell anyone you're coming. Daisy, if this is another trap... It's not, I swear. Daria messed up. She kept evidence she shouldn't have. Her voice cracked. They're going to kill her, Michaela, and they'll come for you too. The line went dead. Tobias was watching me, concern etched across his face. What's happening? I hesitated. After everything, could I trust him? Did I have a choice? Daria's in trouble. Daisy says someone's going to kill her. I grabbed my purse. I need to go. I'm coming with you. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I need to do this alone. His expression hardened. This isn't about us anymore, Meek. If someone's threatening Daria, threatening you, I'm not letting you walk into that alone. Part of me wanted to argue, to push him away, but a smaller, more honest part was relieved. Fine, but we do this my way. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to Lake Westwood, parking a quarter mile from the boathouse. The place was deserted this time of year, the lake a flat gray mirror under the cloudy sky. We should call the police, Tobias said as we walked along the shoreline. And tell them what? That my former best friend who slept with my husband might be in danger from my mother and her ex-lover because of some mysterious inheritance scheme? I shook my head. We need proof first. The boathouse came into view, a weathered wooden structure jutting out over the water. My father used to bring me here when I was little. We'd fish off the dock, though we rarely caught anything. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. Stay behind me, I whispered as we approached. The door was ajar, creaking slightly in the breeze. Daisy? I called softly, pushing the door open wider. The interior was dim, sunlight filtering through dirty windows. Fishing gear and old life jackets lined the walls. A small motorboat bobbed gently in the water at the indoor dock. And there, tied to a chair in the center of the room, was Daria. Her face was bruised, a cut above her eyebrow trickling blood down her cheek. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Michaela, run! She screamed. It's a trap? Daisy stepped from the shadows, a gun held casually at her side. Not exactly. I froze, Tobias bumping into me from behind. Daisy, what are you doing? Fixing my sister's mess. She gestured with the gun. Both of you over there, next to Daria. We complied, moving slowly. Up close, Daria looked worse. Her lip was split, her wrists raw from the ropes binding her. Are you okay? I asked her, surprising myself with a genuine concern in my voice. She gave a small, bitter laugh. Not really. Touching reunion, Daisy said, leaning against the wall. But we don't have much time. Time for what? Tobias asked. What's going on? Daisy sighed. My sister made a critical error. She kept records she shouldn't have. Insurance, she called it. When Marcus found out, he sent people to retrieve them. She nodded toward Daria. She wouldn't tell them where they were. So you're working for Marcus? I asked, trying to understand. God, no. Daisy looked genuinely offended. I'm trying to save her life. And yours. Daria shifted in her chair. Daisy found out what I've been doing. What Marcus and Gianna have been planning. She thinks we can stop them. Stop them from what? Tobias asked. From killing Michaela once she turns 35, Daria said flatly. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? The trust fund isn't just money, Daria explained, wincing as she tried to move her bound hands. There's a controlling interest in a pharmaceutical patent your father developed, something worth billions. Your mother's been collecting the profits for years, but the full ownership transfers to you on your birthday, no matter what. So the loyalty test, I started, was never about testing Tobias, Daisy finished. It was about isolating you, making you vulnerable. They needed you broken, alone, desperate enough to sign whatever they put in front of you. And if I refused? The answer was already forming in my mind, sickening in its clarity. Tragic accident, Daria whispered. They've done it before. My legs threatened to give out. Tobias steadied me, his hand warm on my back. Why are you telling me this now? I asked Daria. After everything you did? She met my eyes, her own filled with tears. Because I never thought they'd actually hurt you. I thought it was just manipulation, mind games. When I realized what they were planning, she shook her head. I couldn't be part of it. So she kept evidence, Daisy said. Records of payments, recorded conversations, enough to bring them down. But Marcus found out. His men are coming here, Daria added urgently. They followed Daisy. We don't have much time. Where's this evidence? Tobias asked. Daria looked at me. Where no one would think to look. Your father's fishing box. My breath caught. The old tackle box my father had left me, the one I kept in my office closet, untouched for years. We need to get it before they do, Daisy said, finally lowering the gun. And we need to get my sister somewhere safe. I stared at Daria, the woman who'd betrayed me in the most intimate way possible, who'd been part of a scheme to manipulate, isolate, and possibly kill me, who was now, apparently, trying to save me. Why should I believe any of this? I asked her. Why should I help you? You shouldn't, she said simply. I wouldn't in your position. But Michaela, her voice broke. Your mother and Marcus killed your father, and they'll kill you too if you don't stop them. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My father's death, the car accident that had shattered my world when I was 16, hadn't been an accident at all. Untie her, I told Tobias, my voice steadier than I felt. We're getting that evidence. As Tobias worked on Daria's restraints, I turned to Daisy. If this is some elaborate game, it's not. She pressed the gun into my hand. You might need this. Marcus's men aren't known for asking questions first. The weight of the weapon felt foreign, terrifying, but not as terrifying as the realization that the people who had raised me, loved me, shaped my entire life had been plotting my death all along. Let's go, I said, helping Daria to her feet. We have 3 days until my birthday, 3 days to end this. The drive to my office was tense, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Daria sat in the back seat, holding a cloth to her bleeding lip. Daisy kept checking the rearview mirror for signs we were being followed. Tobias drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. And I sat frozen, processing the unthinkable. My parents had murdered my father. There's a car, Daisy said suddenly. Black SUV, 2 cars back. It's been with us since the lake. Tobias took a sharp right turn. The SUV followed. Faster, I urged. My office was still 10 minutes away. If we get pulled over, Tobias started, if we get caught by Marcus's men, a speeding ticket will be the least of our problems. Daria cut in. Tobias pressed the accelerator, weaving through traffic. I clutched the door handle, the gun heavy in my coat pocket. Almost there, he said as we pulled onto the street where my law firm stood. What's the plan? You 3 stay in the car, I said. I'll go in alone, less suspicious. Absolutely not, Tobias and Daisy said in unison. I'm coming with you, Tobias insisted. I wanted to argue, but time was slipping away. Fine. Daria and Daisy, stay down. If we're not back in 10 minutes, leave. Get somewhere safe. The sisters exchanged a look. Be careful, Daria said softly. The office was quiet. Sunday afternoon. Most people home with their families. Families that didn't plot to kill each other, I thought bitterly. We took the stairs to the 14th floor, not trusting the elevator. My office door was unlocked. "That's not right," I whispered, pulling Tobias back. "I always lock it." A voice came from inside. "I know you're out there, Michaela. Come in. We need to talk." My mother. I reached for the gun, but Tobias caught my wrist, shaking his head. "Not yet," he mouthed. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. Gianna sat at my desk, elegant as always in a tailored navy suit. My father's old tackle box lay open in front of her, its contents, files, USB drives, small recording devices, spread across the surface. "I always knew Daria was too sentimental for this business," she said, not looking up. "Keeping records was foolish." "Murdering my father was foolish," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" She finally met my eyes. "I had hoped to spare you that particular truth." "By killing me too?" A flicker of something, regret, annoyance, crossed her face. "That was Marcus's plan, not mine. I merely needed you to sign over control of the patent. The patent that should have been mine all along." I stepped further into the office, Tobias close behind me. "The one Dad left to me in his will. Your father was naive. He didn't understand what he'd created." She gestured to the files. "This drug could change everything, cure diseases we thought incurable, but he wanted to give it away, make it accessible to everyone." Her lip curled in disgust. "Do you have any idea how much money he was willing to throw away?" "So you had him killed." The words hung in the air between us. She didn't deny it. "Marcus handled that part. I simply didn't stop him." Rage rose in me like a tidal wave. "My entire life has been a lie. Every birthday card, every Christmas dinner, every piece of advice, all while you were planning to steal what Dad left me." "Not steal, protect." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "You're too much like him, Michaela. Too idealistic. Too willing to sacrifice profit for principle." "And Daria? Where does she fit in?" "She was useful. Her father owed me a favor." My mother smiled thinly. "She played her part well until recently. When she developed a conscience? When she got greedy." My mother began gathering the evidence, sliding it into her briefcase. "Now, we have a decision to make. You can fight me on this, create a messy scandal that will drag our family name through the mud. Or you can sign these papers, take a very generous settlement, and live your life in peace." She produced a document from her briefcase. $20 million, Michaela. More than enough to start over. For a moment, I was tempted. Not by the money, but by the chance to walk away from all of this. To be free of the web of lies and manipulation that had defined my life. But then I thought of my father. Of his dreams for the medicine he'd created. Of the lives it could save if it wasn't locked behind exorbitant prices. "Where's Marcus now?" I asked. "Waiting for my call." She checked her watch. "He's not a patient man, darling. I suggest you decide quickly." I felt Tobias tense beside me. Following his gaze, I saw the handle of my office door turning slowly. "I've already decided," I said, raising my voice slightly. "I'm my father's daughter. I won't let you steal his legacy." The door burst open, but instead of Marcus's men, Rachel stood there, flanked by 2 police officers and a man in a suit. "FBI," the suited man announced, showing his badge. "Gianna Morris, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and accessory to murder." My mother's composure finally cracked. "This is absurd. You have no proof." "Actually," Rachel said, stepping forward, "we have everything, including the conversation you just had with your daughter, which we've been recording for the past 10 minutes. She held up her phone, then gestured to the small device clipped to my collar, the wire she'd given me before we entered the building. "You planned this," my mother hissed at me as the officers approached her. "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped letting you plan my life." As they led her away, she looked back once. "Marcus won't stop, Michaela. He'll come for you." "Let him try," I replied. When we were alone, Tobias pulled me into his arms. I allowed it, too emotionally drained to resist the comfort. "It's over," he murmured into my hair. But I knew it wasn't. Not yet. "We need to get back to the car," I said, pulling away. Daria and Daisy. A gunshot echoed from the street below. We rushed to the window. In the parking lot, I could see the black SUV that had followed us, its doors open. Two men were dragging someone, into the back seat. A flash of blonde hair, Daria. And on the pavement beside our car, a body lay motionless. Daisy. No, I whispered, already running for the door. No, no, no. The choice I'd been avoiding crashed down on me with terrible clarity. This wasn't over. It wouldn't be over until Marcus was stopped, permanently. I reached into my pocket, feeling the cold metal of the gun Daisy had given me. "Michaela, wait," Tobias called after me. But I was already gone, racing toward the final confrontation, my father's daughter at last. I burst through the stairwell door into the parking lot, heart hammering against my ribs. Daisy lay motionless on the asphalt, blood pooling beneath her blonde hair. The black SUV peeled away, tires screeching. Tobias was right behind me. "Michaela, stop. We need to call an ambulance." I knelt beside Daisy, pressing my fingers to her neck. A pulse, faint but there. She moaned softly. "She's alive," I said, relief washing through me. "Stay with her. Call 911. "Where are you going?" Tobias grabbed my arm as I stood. "They have Daria." I pulled away. "I know where they're taking her." "How could you possibly?" "Marcus owns a warehouse by the river. My father showed it to me once, said it was where they developed the early versions of the drug." I checked the gun, making sure it was loaded. "It's where this all started. It's where it'll end." "The police are on their way," Tobias argued. "Let them handle this." I looked down at Daisy, at the blood staining the pavement, at the sister who'd risked everything to save Daria, despite their differences. "There's no time," I said, "and I'm done letting other people fight my battles." Before he could stop me, I was in my car, tires squealing as I pulled onto the street. In the rearview mirror, I saw Tobias kneeling beside Daisy, phone pressed to his ear. I drove like someone possessed, weaving through traffic, running yellow lights. The gun sat heavy on the passenger seat. I'd never fired one before. I hoped I wouldn't have to. The warehouse loomed against the darkening sky, a hulking shadow on the riverfront. Two cars were parked outside, the black SUV and a sleek silver Mercedes I recognized as Marcus's. I parked a block away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows. A single guard stood by the entrance, smoking. I circled around, finding a side door unattended. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous, filled with abandoned equipment and dust-covered machinery. Voices echoed from somewhere ahead. I moved silently, the gun clutched in my sweating hand. "Becoming a liability," Marcus was saying, his voice carrying in the empty space. "I warned Gianna this would happen." "She didn't tell them anything," a man's voice responded. "We got to her in time." "And her sister?" "Taken care of." My blood ran cold. They thought they'd killed Daisy. I peered around a stack of crates. In the center of the warehouse, Daria sat tied to a chair, blood streaming from her nose. Marcus paced in front of her, two men flanking him, the same men I'd glimpsed dragging her into the SUV. "Where's the rest of the evidence?" Marcus demanded, grabbing Daria's chin. She spat blood at his feet. "Go to hell." He slapped her, the sound cracking through the warehouse. "Your loyalty to Michaela is touching, if belated, but she'll be dead by morning, with or without your help." "No, she won't." I stepped into the open, gun raised. My hands were steady, my voice calmer than I felt. Marcus turned slowly, surprise melting into a cold smile. "Michaela, I was just talking about you." "I heard." I kept the gun trained on him, trying to remember everything I'd learned from the single self-defense class I'd taken years ago. "Untie her." He laughed, gesturing to his men. "You're outnumbered, my dear, and I doubt you even know how to use that thing. Want to bet your life on it?" I took another step forward. "I'm my father's daughter after all, and you should know better than anyone what he was capable of." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. "Your father was weak, sentimental, just like you. My father created something that could help millions, and you killed him for it. Another step. You and my mother plotted his death, stole his legacy, and planned to kill me too." "Business," he said dismissively. "Nothing personal." "It's personal to me." I was close enough now to see the sweat beading on his forehead. "Untie her. Now." One of his men moved toward me. I shifted the gun to him. "Don't." He hesitated, looking to Marcus for direction. "You won't shoot," Marcus said. but he sounded less certain. "I've lost everything because of you," I replied. "My father, my marriage, my best friend. What exactly do you think I have left to lose?" Something in my voice must have convinced him. He nodded to his men. "Untie her." As one of them moved to release Daria, Marcus lunged for me. I fired without thinking, the gun's report deafening in the enclosed space. Marcus stumbled back, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, his face contorted in shock and pain. "You shot me," he gasped. "Be grateful I'm not like you," I said, "or it would have been your heart." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Marcus's men exchanged glances, then bolted for the exit. "They'll be arrested before they reach their car," I told Marcus as I moved to untie Daria myself. "The FBI has been tracking your operation for months. Rachel made sure of that." "Rachel?" Daria asked weakly as I freed her hands. "She's been building a case against them since you approached her about Tobias." I helped her stand. "Turns out she's been working with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit for years." Marcus sank to his knees, still clutching his bleeding shoulder. "This isn't over, Michaela." "Yes, it is." I kept the gun trained on him as the warehouse doors burst open, FBI agents flooding in. "My father's legacy is safe now, and so am I." As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, Daria turned to me. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said quietly, "but I need you to know I'm sorry for everything." I looked at her, really looked at her. The friend I'd trusted, the woman who'd betrayed me, the person who'd ultimately risked her life to save mine. "I don't forgive you," I said honestly. "Not yet, maybe not ever, but I understand you were caught in something bigger than both of us." She nodded, tears mixing with the blood on her face. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin. Ambulances and police cars filled the street, their lights painting everything in flashes of red and blue. Tobias stood by one of the ambulances where paramedics were loading Daisy inside. "She's going to be okay," he said as I approached. "The bullet just grazed her." Relief washed through me. "And Marcus?" "In custody, along with his men." He hesitated. "And you? Are you okay?" I considered the question. Was I okay? My world had been shattered, rebuilt, and shattered again in the span of a week. I'd lost my husband, my best friend, my mother. I'd discovered my father's murder and nearly become a victim myself. But I'd also found my strength, my voice, my truth. "I will be," I said finally, "but not with you." Pain flashed across his face. "Michaela, you slept with my best friend, Tobias. Manipulation or not, that's something I can't move past." I touched his cheek gently. "Some betrayals can be understood, but not forgotten." He nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. "What will you do now?" I looked toward the river, where the first light of dawn was breaking over the water. My father's patent would be mine in 2 days. His legacy, a medicine that could help countless people, would finally fulfill the purpose he'd intended. "I'm going to build something new," I said, "something that honors what was lost, but doesn't live in its shadow." As the sun crested the horizon, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not happiness exactly, but possibility. The future stretched before me, unwritten and mine alone. I'd entered the darkness my mother and Marcus had created, faced the worst they could do, and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. Some people are born into their strength, others have it thrust upon them, but the strongest are those who find it within the ruins of everything they once believed to be true.